Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to rise today with my colleagues to lead the House of Representatives in reading President George Washington's farewell address. Having just celebrated his 294th birthday of our indispensable first president, this is a fitting tribute as we celebrate the 250th year of our nation's creation. The farewell address is a remarkable document. Published in the American Daily Advertiser on September 19, 1796, it was never delivered in person, but it was widely read and remains one of the most important documents in American history. President Washington completed his 2 terms as our indispensable first president. First in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. Every step of the way, he viewed his actions through the lens of precedent it would set for the presidency and for future presidents. His dress, his decorum, his relationship with Congress, his decisions about his cabinet, and his approach to executive decision-making. In this address, you'll see clearly that he ended his extraordinary public career on a high note. The practice of reading the farewell address began in a joint session of the Congress on February 22, 1862, during the darkest days of the Civil War. The Senate revived the ceremonial reading in 1888, and each year since 1896, the Senate has observed George Washington's birthday in February by selecting a senator alternating parties to read the 7,641-word statement in their legislative session. This year, fittingly, in this year of A250, our semi-quincentennial, it was Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. The House revived the ceremonial reading in 1889 and continued intermittently until 1933, after which it became an annual fixture until 1979. Today, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues and I are delighted to return this tradition to the House floor, accompanied by our handsome portrait of our first president by John Vanderlyn that has hung here in the House chamber since the 1830s. Mr. Washington's farewell address.